Confession, they say, is good for the soul. Here's one of my confessions. I had never seen True Lies until last night. The 1994 James Cameron directed Arnold comedy action film. I'd never seen it. I hope you don't think less of me because of that. What's that? You couldn't think less of me. Charming. Hello, welcome back. Oh, what of stuff. My name, it be Paul Mount. Yep, I'd never seen True Lies before. It's just one of those films that sailed under my radar, slipped through the net, went over my head. I don't know the reason really, because I was a regular cinema goer in the 90s and I used to see the big films that came out. I think part of it might be because I had always lumped in Arnold with the Sylvester Stallones and the Steven Seagals and the Jean-Claude Van Dammes and all these people who churn out these dumb action films but can't act. One thing I can't put up with when I watch my entertainment is bad act. It does wind me up a little bit. And I think because I had this association with Arnold, with all these others, I just thought that he couldn't act. And he's not a great actor. He's never going to win an Oscar. But he can hold his own in an action film and he is able to emote, which is a lot more than some of the others and his contemporaries can do. So I picked up True Lies a couple of weeks ago. It was re-released on Blu-ray. It was about a tenner, something like that, on Amazon. And I thought, well, I'll take a punt at this. I've never seen it. It comes in one of those slim cases. I don't think it's an eco case. And to be honest, I wouldn't care if it was, because it's the film and the disc that counts, not the packaging. And it does have, for those who care about these things, a slip cover. So, yeah, I thought I'd sit down and watch it and review it as a retro movie review. Sat down and watched it last night and had a really good time with it. I really enjoyed this film. It's directed by James Cameron. It's came after Terminator 2 and Piranha and earlier films that he'd done. And it was incidentally, the first film with a budget of over $100 million. When you look at it now, you sort of think, wow, I'm surprised it only cost that, because it's a big film. It's a very big film, big, broad, sort of a Bond pastiche in a way, but also a relationship drama, comedy, and I thought all the bits of it worked very well together. The story is that, I'm going to call him Arnold. Arnold Schwarzenegger plays Harry Tasker. He appears to be a sort of James Bond type figure. We see him at the beginning of the film infiltrating this party in Switzerland, which is held by billionaire Jamal Khaled. At the party, he meets up with Juno Skinner, who's a sort of an art dealer. She's played by Tia Carrera, who some of you may remember from the Wayne's World films. And she also appeared in her own series, Relic Hunter, a few years ago, which is quite good fun if you seek it out. It's a sort of a low-budget TV version of Lara Croft. Harry's also a family man. His wife Helen, played by Jamie Lee Curtis in her prime here, she has an office job and she's a bit mousy when we see her first of all, and she thinks that Harry has a fairly routine job as a computer hardware salesman, and the fact that he's often abroad and often on trips, they just put that down to him going off on business trips. He's actually an agent for Omega Sector, which is a top secret US counter-terrorist unit. And he goes off on these exploits. And during the course of his latest exploit, because of what happens during this adventure, he misses the birthday party of his young daughter Dana, who incidentally is played by a very young Eliza Dushku, who many of you will remember as Faith in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He goes to see his wife the next day to try and make up, and he overhears a conversation which leads him to believe that she's having an affair with somebody called Simon. He sort of follows her and he uses Omega's resources to sort of track her down. Finds out that she isn't actually having an affair, but she has become intrigued by this bloke called Simon, who's actually a used car dealer. He's played by Bill Paxton. And it turns out, by using Omega's resources for purposes that people might find a little creepy today, he finds out that she's a little bit disillusioned. She's going through a midlife crisis because Harry's out and about. She's got this fairly mundane job. She feels she's missing out on something. So Harry uses the resources of Omega to set up a sting for her to give her a bit of an impetus in her life. But it's actually him who's behind the sting. During their activities, shall we say, as his men burst in and they're kidnapped. And this sets off a chain of events which involves the use of nuclear weapons, They're being taken to this secret hideaway of the villain, and an all-action, all-explosive finale where helicopters are flying about, a nuclear bomb has exploded, there's crashes, there's a huge action scene on a bridge. Arnie has to pilot this fighter jet, which he's never used before, to rescue his daughter, who's been kidnapped by Aziz, who's incidentally played by Art Malik. It's a good, fun film. I really enjoyed it. It's unpretentious, madcap action comedy. And it's the comedy that really surprised me in this, because when we think of James Cameron today, we do think of Titanic, we think of the Avatar films, which I enjoy. You know, they're entertaining for what they are as a spectacle. But he actually has a good eye and ear for humour in this film, and so does Arnie, which is even more surprising perhaps. And you sort of think, it's a shame that James Cameron seems to be determined to dedicate the rest of his career to this endless string of Avatar films. And I say they're perfectly fine for what they are, but they're sort of all about the technology, and I think he's become engrossed and obsessed with what film can do rather than the stories it can tell. Because this is a good, fun film. It really has there's a lot of good comedic moments, there's a lot of good comedy lines, there's some good comedy performances. I think watching it now, it's a 30-year-old film, I think some people of tender sensibilities today might find some of the attitudes a little bit jarring. Some of the language in relation to women is a bit jarring. And Jamie Lee Curtis, there is a spectacular scene with Jamie Lee Curtis, which some feminists might find a little bit demeaning. And I think it shows how attitudes have changed, tastes have changed. These things don't bother me. I watched films from years ago and I just take the attitudes for what they were. People will get up in arms about a lot of stuff these days. This is a good romp of a film that has aged. You can't deny that certain attitudes have aged. But I think in terms of the action and the spectacle, this is right up there with the Mission Impossibles, the Bournes, all the big action films. The stuff in here which is really spectacular. And I love the bike horse chase scene sort of early on in the film with Arnie chasing Aziz through the city on a horse while Aziz is on a bike. I loved the scene at the end, the extended scene at the end is fantastic with the plane and the chases on the bridge. Strange credibility a little bit because Aziz is threatening to set off nuclear bombs and he sets one off on this remote island, and there's a scene where the bomb goes off and you see the mushroom cloud and everybody looks away and then it's forgotten. It's never mentioned again and never referenced, or I think there's a brief reference later on. But there's no sort of indication of any after effects. Well, I know the bomb goes off on an island miles away, but everybody's just nearby going about their business. But that's just, it's a high fantasy film. You go along with things like that. But yeah, it's just really great fun. And I'm glad I've seen it at last. It is, I think the title I find a little bit bland, which is probably another reason I didn't go into it. But once you've seen the film, the title makes a lot more sense. But my main take from it really is it's a shame that James Cameron doesn't diversify a bit and not obsessed with Avatar and try doing more stuff like this. I mean, obviously, Arnie's out of the age range to do action films now, but James Cameron is good at action stuff. And it would be so nice to do something contemporary and earthbound rather than all this hippy-dippy Pandora stuff that he's obsessed with. It's a really good film, a really good fun film. Arnie's very good in it, and as I said, I've mistakenly lumped him in with all those others. But he does have a range, shall we say, and he copes very well in this film. I really enjoyed it. It's good fun, old school action film. True Lies is available now on Blu-ray. It's probably streaming as well, but I think it looked great on Blu-ray. I really enjoyed watching it. Good quality picture, and I had a good time with it. 2 hours 20 minutes flew by. That's True Lies. I've broken my True Lies duck. I'm very pleased with that, and I'm going to give True Lies, I'm going to give it 8.5 out of 10 because that's how much I enjoyed it. Right, thank you for watching this video. If you are new here, you've just pressed this button because you saw a film you remembered and wanted to hear what I thought of it. Why not stick around? There's a lot of retro stuff on this channel, veering more and more towards the retro. But like and subscribe. Press that subscribe button. Click the likes. Like is good for the analytics apparently. And leave a comment as well. Always nice to hear your opinions of the things that I'm reviewing, whether they're old things I've seen before or things I'm catching up with in the case of this one. So yeah, please stick around. Loads more to come. I will see you soon. Until I do, keep taking the stuff.